Fred Murray. How you doing, buddy?
How are we doing?
I'm good, man.
Good, man. Good to see you.
East Coast meets West Coast today.
It's good.
Right.
We're on the backside, and you're just getting started on your day.
Yeah, we're nearing lunch. I'm doing all right.
Yeah, that's good. Well, Fred, I'm excited to talk to you. I know we've spent a little time together getting to know one another at different meetings that we're at, but honestly, I haven't asked you nearly enough questions about to know who Fred Murray is. So for those who don't know Fred Murray, right? You're the president of XL Air, but give us tell us what you do today, and then I'm going to ask you maybe to start back at the beginning of kind of where you started out in life. Are you from California? Right. Give us the gamut of of who Fred Murray is.
Yeah, thanks. I'm currently the president of XL Air Systems. My brother Mark and I founded the company a little more than 20 years ago. And as you guys probably know, we joined Service Logic about 2.5 years ago. And that's been fun. That's been interesting. Been a great learning experience for me. But I am originally, just to jump into the next part, I am originally from California, born and raised out here in San Jose. And, our shop is just in a neighboring community, Santa Clara. And I live just south of San Jose now in a smaller community and commute in. But spent my whole life here.
So you and your brother-in-law started the business.
I'm sorry?
So you and your brother-in-law started the business?
My brother, Mark, my older brother.
You and your brother. Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, Mark got me into the trade. We're talking like 40 years ago now, boys.
Oh yeah, come on. How old were you when you got started?
I don't know how I look on camera, but I'm getting old.
You look good.
Yeah, so we've got about 40 years in, and Mark and I started the business, as I said, about 20 years ago. Mark has since retired about 2 years ago.
Okay.
So great for him. He's out golfing just about every day.
I need to visit Mark.
It's good for him. He's having fun.
That's fun. Well, so get me straight on this. I'm guessing he was already in the business and said, "Hey, man, you need to come join me in this HVAC thing. We need to start a business." Was he already a technician, or did he work for another company? How'd that work?
Yeah. Mark was a technician, and saw me just kind of bounce around in college without any real direction, and just said, "Hey, why don't you jump in?" So I did. I actually worked non-union for a couple of years, and Mark was a tech at a union shop, and then finally had an opportunity to jump on board at that same shop he was working at, and I worked there for about I think about 17 years before we started Excel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, were you at a university getting another degree? How'd that? What were you doing at the time?
Just toiling around in school without any great direction. Probably headed more towards electrical engineering than anything else.
Okay.
But didn't have a set path forward. So I think Mark kind of recognized that and said, "Hey, stop screwing around and go to work." So it's worked out pretty well.
As good older brothers will, right?
Yeah, and we're really fortunate. It's not easy. One, maintaining a good relationship with siblings and a family member, or two, working with them every day, let alone operating your own business together as partners.
Sure.
So we were really, really fortunate. We were very compatible. We worked off each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we made great partners for the better part of 20 years. So I'm very fortunate.
So how are y'all made up? Is one of you's got to be a little business minded and wants to take care of the books, and one of you's got to be a little sales oriented, I would imagine. Is that accurate, or am I completely off base?
No, you're right. And I was probably a little more comfortable on the business end. But when it came to operations, I was focused more on the project side, and Mark had more of a service background, so we balanced each other in that fashion.
Okay.
But he didn't want to dive into the business side too deep, so I handled that end of it. Although I'm hardly a finance guy, but I tend to fall more into that camp.
Okay. Did you take intro to finance before you got out of school?
Is that where you started when you came on board? Did you start on the operations or finance side of the business, or what did you start off with?
As a tech out in the field, and actually Mark was more on the service side, startup in controls, which is where I wanted to go, but I ended up actually starting as a sheet metal mechanic for about 3 years, 3.5 years, and then had an opportunity to jump into that union shop that I mentioned, and got more into the service and startup and control side of the business, air balance, commissioning, all that kind of fun stuff. So that's the way it worked for me.
So
what convinced you guys to start your own thing?
Yeah, as time went by and I, my career kind of evolved. I became a superintendent and then a department manager, managing the operations side. Eventually, it just became my best path forward, or our best path forward, to open our own shop and move forward. When you work for someone else, you have limited options, right? You're letting somebody else, to some extent, decide your future. Of course, you can always pick up and leave, right?
Sure.
Hopefully, they provide some opportunities for you for growth. And I just wasn't going to get the opportunities that I was searching for, remaining at that company. So It was just my best path forward to start my own company, which is pretty nerve-wracking.
Oh, that's daunting, man. Yeah. Well, most people don't. Most people can't hang it.
Honest.
Yeah, most people are like, daggum, I always wanted to, but golly, that first 2-year stint is gonna, kill me.
Yeah.
Well, so tell us about that, because that's I've been the guy of, I want to start my own thing, but dadgummit, it's who knows what's going to happen in the world of business. Give us. You and your brother jump ship at the same time, I assume, and you're like, all right, tomorrow we're working for ourselves. How did that? Tell us a little bit about that journey, because there's a boatload of people who think like we do and that'll listen to this and are interested in that process.
Right, and you're right. That was pretty much it. It's like, okay, next Tuesday, it's the day. You turn in your notice and you set up your business plan and you do whatever you can in advance to try and get yourself off to a good start. But we were very fortunate that some friends of mine were starting their own company, and they actually had talked to me about trying to come on board on their company, and I explained that Mark and I were going to start our own thing. It just so happened that we had the strength that they needed, right? They needed some service startup guys. They had kind of the sheet metal construction end covered. So we actually more or less partnered with that company, which has also been very, very successful.
Nice.
It brought in some work to us, which was great to get us going. We always had the intention of having a strong service-based company, but that takes time. As you guys well know, you guys spent a lot of time in the maintenance sales world.
Well, sure.
That is a slow grind. That is a marathon. It is not a sprint. So it was great for us. We, helped this other company and other companies like that, since that was more of our background. They could trust us. It was people that we had worked with that had splintered and gone to other companies.
Yeah.
They would call us in to do the controls, the startup, the refrigerant piping, the commissioning, the air balance. We would perform that work at the same time. We'd be able to follow up and get the maintenance on a lot of those accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Or we were just out on the street trying to generate our own maintenance opportunities and customers. So that's the way it started. It started with Mark and I in a used van, and QuickBooks and off we go. We were off and running, and slowly built over time. And as you said, 2 or 3 years in, you're probably going to know whether you're going to make it or not.
Right.
And so we felt a little more comfortable after year 2 or 3, but it was at that point, it's how successful are you going to be, right? We can make a living now. Okay, we've proven that, but can we grow the business? Can we scale it? Can we be successful as we do that?
Sure.
And that never really changes, to be honest. It doesn't matter if it's year 2 or year 20. It's still that same challenge of, are we going to scale? Are we going to be efficient? And how successful are we going to be?
Yeah, I imagine your business plan was not just you and Mark.
No, it wasn't. But it
just
also
as we can, just the 2 of us.
Yeah, but honestly, having come from a company that had a few years prior done 200 million annually, I was used to working for a larger company that was doing quite a bit of volume, and the other folks that I had mentioned that started their own firm, I knew that was their intention. They wanted to be 100 million plus, no doubt. That was their goal. That was their trajectory. That was not our trajectory, right? We just wanted to be more of a service-based company, a little smaller, a little more manageable. So we were on 2 different paths, which was fine. Again, we complemented each other, trying to help each other out. But it has been interesting over the years as it grows, and you have different challenges, different phases of growth, and it's been a great experience, honestly.
What market did I mean? I know you're doing some work with that other company that was pulling you in, maybe to some of their clientele, I'm assuming. But what market was kind of the first you dove into? Was it manufacturing, or medical? What was kind of there on the next Tuesday when you were trying to go get something? What was it?
Yeah, so we're out here in the Silicon Valley, so there's a lot of office space, some light manufacturing, there's R&D, there's data and server farms, there's a little bit of everything, honestly, but there's tons of new businesses and industries that pop up here. It's like whack-a-mole with the entrepreneurs. Everything pops up here in the Silicon Valley, which is great. But yeah, it was a lot of office space, plenty of software firms, and like I said, some light manufacturing and that kind of stuff.
Was the early 2000s. Not much happening in the old data space then, right?
Yeah. It's, it's funny, since I've been in the trade, we would go through some of these buildings out here. It seemed like 2 or 3 times, even over a 10 or 12 year period. We'd be back in and they'd be retooling the place. It was like, didn't we just do this building 5 years ago? But here we are back again, and it's great. You love it. You love to go in and keep doing that work, and let them change it again, and let them create a new business model or a new tool. Or, we'll come back up and hook up something else, the next line of business.
So as you're moving through that process, you fast forward, you said, hey man, I think we can make a living. Let's build a business. Time goes on and you start to get to a point where, we might need to look at some other things. And I know me and Corey have always been interested in this, because I think there's a certain amount of mystery for us and for people listening of, man, when you hear all the time, I sold my business, and they just kind of go through that. What led to that process? What was that process like? Why did you choose Service Logic? All that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I hadn't planned on selling the business. We went through COVID. Mark had decided through that period it was about time for him to retire, right? Mark was the guy who was like, I'll stay at home for those weeks. And I was the guy driving into the office, right? Because I'm probably a little bit of a control freak, and everything was out of my control, but I could still show up to the office every day, right?
Amen.
Do what little bit I could. but so anyways, fast forward, Mark has made his retirement plans. We're buying out his shares. We brought a couple of partners, just existing employees, onto the team. And I was getting either phone calls or emails just about daily with folks saying, hey, we're interested in buying your business. They're generally a canned email.
Sure.
And I just click delete, or if they're persistent, I'll write them back and just say, no, thank you, happy hunting, keep going. But Tim Riedel, you guys, I'm sure both remember Tim, very charming gentleman, Service Logic president, reached out with an email, and it wasn't a canned email. It was, I could tell Tim wrote me an email and took a minute to tell me what little he knew about Excel. Told me they had some interest, and of course I immediately Googled Service Logic. And I thought, well, what's wrong with these jokers? They're not even in California, right? There's nobody west of Arizona, right? And so, quite honestly, I just thought, well, I hate to burn Tim's time, but I'm going to go ahead and return his phone call or make some time to talk with him and chat with him, because at some point I would need to move the business along, whether it be to the junior partners we brought in or sell it.
Yeah.
So I thought it couldn't hurt to see what's going on in the market. So I just wrote out a list of questions for Tim, and I thought, well,
here we go.
So I'm gonna burn this poor guy's time and pick his brain. And Tim and I probably spent an hour or two on the phone that first time. And I just became more and more intrigued. And the more I learned about Service Logic, the more I liked it. The more people I met from Service Logic, the more I was impressed.
Sure.
And I just became convinced it was the best path forward for Excel. And so far so good. It's worked out. It's worked out very well.
You got to have an anchor in California at some point anyway, right?
Here we are.
Thank you for paving the way, bro.
Well, it's been impressive. You guys are aware that we've acquired a couple other companies as Excel now, but the other companies that have joined Service Logic have been impressive companies. Yeah. There's a lot of great contractors in California, and I know we have a reputation as a tough place to work, California as a state. And, guys like me, I wouldn't know any better, right? I was born and raised. I can't tell you how easy or difficult it is in Texas or Florida compared to California, but it's doable. And California is a great state. It's got a great economy. And here in Silicon Valley, it's generally booming, although it's been rough the last year or so. It is a great place to own and operate a business, just because there's plenty of work going on and plenty of talent too. We're really lucky. There's a ton of talent in California.
I have not spent much time in California. However, this year, my family and I, we thought we'd go to Yellowstone, which is not in California, of course. But when we started looking at, we wanted to go in late, spring break for the kids, late March, early April. That place ain't even open. It's too damn cold. Right. So we figured we'd keep going west, and we showed up to California and did, Yosemite, Sequoia National, went over to Monterey. We had flown into San Francisco and kind of did the roundabout.
Good for you.
I thought, we're on the East Coast. We hear that people are fleeing California in droves. Ain't nobody going anywhere in California. There's plenty of people still hanging right tight in California.
Yeah. Well, California is the most populous state, right? We could afford to lose a few. It's fine. There's plenty of us left over here.
It was beautiful. Everything we saw, we enjoyed. It was a probably the only time we're going to do that trip because it's also an expensive place to be. But nevertheless, it was a lot of fun. All my kids and my wife had a great time.
Well, I haven't traveled a lot, but I've traveled a little bit. And I've got to tell you, I'll stack up Yosemite, Tahoe, Monterey against any place in the world. And It's gorgeous out here. The weather, the climate, you can't beat it. You can't beat it. And it doesn't matter if you're, down in San Diego or up here around the Bay Area. It's great. It's a great place to live. I like it.
Well, Corey, before we went on that trip, I was like, because before my wife and I had kids late, so we traveled around some before that happened. I was like, man, like Yosemite is my favorite place I've ever been on the planet, and I hadn't found a place that I like better yet. So we'll keep trying, but it's hard to beat. So what you mentioned, there were a couple things as you talked to Tim and to Service Logic. There was a couple things where you started to go, hey, I like this more and more. Without getting too deep into your reasons, what were the couple of things that stood out to you the most that convinced you that this was the right organization to be a part of? I mean, you build a business, it's like one of your kids, and you have employees that depend on you to make good decisions, and you're handing over a lot of responsibility in some ways when that happens. So what were the things that convinced you that it was the right decision?
Yeah, that's a great question. Service Logic has a good business model where they let you largely remain autonomous, right? We work almost as a silo for what's going on in our market. We sell the way we want to sell. We go after the business that we want to go after. And operations internally here remain largely completely intact and unchanged. So that's great. That was appealing. But then on top of that, you have the backing with finance, banking. A couple of, let me just say, my insurance broker was a really nice guy, but I did not enjoy that much spending, the day with him once a year on renewals. Wonderful guy, very nice, very nice. And, it's just, you'll never get that day back, right?
Yeah. Same people say about us, Fred. I hate to tell you
that. Say it, but here I am, burning part of my day. But same with banking. Again, liked my banker. He was a great guy, very supportive of the business. But you get into the game where you're playing with your credit line, right? We rarely ever used our credit line, but we would exercise it just to maintain it and have it open, because I understand from the bank's perspective, if you don't need it, they're going to pull it back because they have others that do, right? They have their own, challenges.
Sure.
But, just some of that stuff that was just not really that fun when you operate your business, right? For me, I'm more of an operations guy, and that's where I wanted to focus my time, taking care of the clients, taking care of your customers. And, it's just kind of nice when you can take some of that stuff off the table. Of course, you still have your daily tasks for, banking and that kind of stuff. And you can't completely wash your hands of it. But, and then any other tools, Salesforce, working with guys like you to help train our sales staff, right? Guys on the finance side, it's a really great team of people, honestly.
Yeah.
Excluding you two guys, but
but every now and again, Corey Brown calls you up with a deal.
We do great podcasts.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you guys have found your strength. You found your calling.
We finally found something we can do.
But it became pretty enticing to me to have a group standing behind us that could back us up and help us, right? IT, like I said, the banking, sales training, Salesforce as a tool, just a lot of other little things. But it was a pretty impressive team that we got to meet and chat with a little bit. And when you're out here working as a contractor, an independent contractor, you're on an island, and it's a bit of a lonely existence. And I'm not complaining. A lot of us, went that route because we wanted to be independent, right? We're mostly pretty independent guys, and or women who want to be out on our own, want to depend on ourselves, who believe in ourselves. We're confident, maybe irrationally confident sometimes.
That's what it takes, man. That's right.
Hopefully you're competent to go along with that. But it kind of sounded nice being on a team, and it's something you miss when you're out there on your own. So
now, give me the big picture today, Fred. How many employees does Excel Air have today? What's you cover just the San Jose area? Give me an idea today.
Yeah, so currently we're running right around 100 employees. We've just about tripled in size in the last 3 years. 2.5, 3 years since joining Service Logic. We still cover roughly the same geographic area, which is the Greater Bay Area. Yeah. Locally here, we call it the South Bay. We usually don't go up into San Francisco proper. Yeah. Too much, but we do have some clients up there that we take care of. Down around a little bit to the East Bay, down to the Monterey area.
So, beautiful spot. I like Monterey. Boy, I'm a golfer, so it's hard to not love Monterey if you're
absolutely
a golf fanatic. Now, and if I'm not mistaken, y'all specialize in some things related to HVAC. Get me straight on that. Don't you do something with clean rooms or data centers or something? You have some specialties in your group. Is that accurate?
Nothing too crazy. We do, of course, do clean room work. We do some building automation. We have a group, Building Automation Solutions, BAS. They focus in Carrier iView. So building automation is nice for us. So we do process. Yeah. We do some. Now with this last company that we acquired, it was Advanced Air Technologies. They had a process piping group, so that's great. So we have that as a strength in-house now. A little bit of plumbing, light plumbing, HVAC piping, of course, sheet metal side, HVAC, and service. We have a great service department and nice clientele of great service customers and construction customers that we work with and support.
So, Fred, when I came on board at Service Logic, you were one of the first companies I actually went out and visited, I think. And you and I hit it off pretty well. Maybe it's because we both wear glasses. I don't know. But, we've chatted some, gotten to know each other a little bit over the years. But even so, that picture behind you, even though I know I would have asked anyway because of that car, but you, when you're not working on air conditioners, you're involved in motorsports a little bit. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Is that a DeLorean or a Corvette? I can't tell.
I see it now. Yeah, you're referencing the little BMW there in the background. So maybe over the other shoulder. Let's see. I got it. Yeah. You can't quite make it out, but there's a little Miata hiding behind there. That's race prep. So. We do some motorsports, not very serious. This isn't going to impress anybody when I tell you about it. It's better if it's out there as a mystery and a rumor because the reality is not very sexy or not very impressive.
Nobody knows the truth here, Fred. You can tell us whatever you want.
That's true. Right.
Weekend NASCAR.
I don't know who's going to watch us, and I don't want to get busted. I am a car enthusiast in general, right? I've always liked fast cars, motorcycles, anything on wheels that's fast, I'm all for. So, but we got into something called, I'm sure you've heard of 24 Hours of Le Mans, right? Very prestigious race. The circuit that we run in is 24 Hours of Lemons. So the concept is you buy a cheap car, a beater.
That's awesome.
Of course, you put all the safety gear on it. Safety's no joke. You have to go full boat. There's a full roll cage, full fire suppression system. You're wearing full, safety gear, fire suit, racing suit, head to toe. But it's an endurance race. We try and do 4 races a year. We've been slipping lately, but
that's fun.
Friday's usually practice, and then you race Saturday and Sunday, and you race, about 7 hours one day and 6.5, 7 hours the next day. The clock runs the entire time, right? So it's a matter of staying on track, knocking out laps, make your pit stops quick, right? The car can't stay out there for 7 straight hours. You got to come in for gas driver changes, that kind of thing. The clock keeps running. So when you're in the pits, everybody else is churning laps. So that's been a lot of fun. We have a great time. It's just, you just go out and hang out with the boys for a long weekend, have a good time, do a little racing, trade a little paint here or there, and try and have a good time. And we're fairly competitive, so that group that we run with is great because probably about a third of the people aren't serious at all, right? If you log in, you look at the videos, everybody's got a theme on their car. It's gimmicky. People just show up to have fun and just basically see if they can churn some laps and finish the race. Next group of guys, the next third are semi-serious and they're trying to get better. And then there's a group that's actually out there trying to be competitive and win. And we would probably fall into that group. We have not won one of the races, but we're gonna keep trying.
That's fun.
It's fun. We have a great time.
Look, one of my favorite movies, and I watch the trailer still every now and again, is Ford versus Ferrari. I showed my daughter that scene where he takes old Ford in that GT for the first time, and he starts crying when he ends. That is one of the best scenes of a movie that I've seen in my lifetime. Just because I love cars as well.
Yeah.
I think I got to get kids out of my house to start buying anything fast or dangerous, Fred. But nevertheless, maybe one day I'm going to come drive with you, Ali.
You're
What he's not telling you, Fred, is the first time I rode with him, I cried at the end of it too. So
I used to put it to a Volkswagen Jetta, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's all right.
He used to fly
1.8 liter, screaming, baby, screaming.
Well, it really doesn't matter what you're driving on the track as long as you're pushing the limit of that vehicle, right? There's a whole debate. You get a really fast car and not push it, or you get a slower car where you're basically trying to drive the wheels off of it. And I can tell you, we by far do not have the fastest car out there. But if you're out there wheeling and going in side by side to a corner with somebody door to door, it's fun. It's fun racing, and it doesn't matter what speed you're running at, right, or what your lap times are. As long as you're running with another car or two cars or a pack of cars, you're competitive, and you're just basically trying to outdrive somebody. That's the whole thrill of it. So
I know going 40 miles per hour in reverse sure did make Shane nervous. I don't know about fun, but
that's a fact. And look. Hey, Fred, and I'm not trying to one-up you here, but if you see that trophy with that hat right there, that is a go-kart trophy from a Piedmont Service Group sales outing.
Look, he's going
now. There you go.
Go-kart.
That's awesome.
By the way, let me say this on camera. That was finishing first in front of Jason Marr. He could not take it. He was. I hope he watches this. He's got his little second place trophy hidden somewhere, buried in a drawer. And that's all I'm going to say about
that. That's right. So, Fred, do you have a family? Do you have kids? What about you personally?
I'm very fortunate. I've been married 30 years now.
Come on.
So
congrats.
Congratulations.
To the same woman, by the way.
Fair enough.
So, have a wonderful wife, Vicky. I have two great kids, both young adults now. As a matter of fact, we're going to do a little party this weekend, kind of a graduation party for both Sean and Sophie, my two kids. One's 26, one's 22.
Cool.
And very proud of them. Very bright, intelligent young folks.
Any of them choose the mechanical business as a field of work?
Neither one of them were interested. Neither were interested. Sean's got he basically just came back from New York, from NYU. He's biology, and my daughter Sophie is studying psychology and heading off for her master's here this fall.
Good.
still both local? I'm sorry if I missed this. Are they both local to you still?
Well, so Sean,
Did he come back from NYU?
yeah, Sean, we drug him back from New York. That's where he finished his degree and was working out there for a lab, and we got him to come back from New York. And Sophie was going to school in Southern California, down in San Diego. And if you guys haven't been to San Diego, that's a great place to visit as well. And she'll be going back down to Southern California to continue her education. But right now they're both at home, which is nice. Have them home for summer at least, and we'll go from there.
Well, I'm gonna go back on you right quick, Fred. What just because this intrigues me, because you're not the only two brothers that decided to get into business, together at some point in time. What do you think that made you and Mark, what are maybe some key ingredients that made you successful or led to, hey, this thing works and we grew a company, right? Was there anything either early on or as you went along? What were some of the key elements, I guess, there?
That's a good question. I think we were mostly just compatible, right? And we, as I mentioned earlier, complemented each other's strengths. I think we're both pretty patient. It's difficult sometimes. Starting a business is difficult enough. Having a partner adds another layer of complexity. But I think we were just really compatible. We were good friends before we started it. And, it probably becomes more difficult as money gets involved, right, with partners and somebody feeling like somebody's doing something that's unfair or they're, being a little more loose with the money. We never had any of those issues. We were just really fortunate we got along so well. And I think that was probably the biggest factor.
Yeah, me and Shane both came from a company that was started by two brothers, and they did it quite well. Buddy and Larry Kelly, if you ever ran into those names, they were probably one of the 5 legacy Service Logic groups that were bought. Okay. Used to be Piedmont Air Conditioning, but they seemed to do it well. And but I think you're right. One of them was the business guy, one of them was the sales guy, and they kind of stayed in their lane, so to speak, and complement each other pretty well. So I think that is certainly an important factor. Anything? Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you definitely have to have a healthy amount of respect for your partner, right? And it doesn't matter if you're brothers or not. But when you said you need to stay in your lane, I was always very careful and very respectful of Mark, and he ran the service group, and that was that. Yeah. And it was the same for the project side for me. I think Mark, we would offer each other advice or constructive criticism when it was warranted. And, you've got to be able to accept that and sit back and take a good look at yourself. But it definitely requires a healthy amount of respect for one another.
I agree with that. Out of the middle of 3 boys, I would agree with that quite a bit. Me and my brother own a little real estate together, very little bit, but we still got to work together. We got some repairs we're doing in the house right this second, trying to finish up.
Yeah.
Fred, is there anything that stands out? What are some of the things that's, and it might be hard to maybe single in on one or two, but what is a highlight? If I say, what's, the highlight of your career, or maybe one or two, anything that stands out when I say that?
Oh, highlight. I'd probably look at it more of milestones, right? I became a superintendent. That was a big milestone for me, or a department manager. But probably the 2 biggest would be when Mark and I started the company. And then I probably need to say when we sold the company and joined Service Logic, right? It's a big deal to try and go out on your own. And I've got to tell you, it feels pretty good, after you put in 20 years, that somebody comes along and they say, hey, you've done a good job. That business has value, right? We value your business. We want you to join our organization. And then they're willing to back it up with a couple of bucks to make it worth your while. It really is gratifying, that you put in all that time and effort, and you feel like, oh, maybe this all was worth it, and you gain a level of security. But those would be a couple of biggies for me.
Everybody wants to know, honestly, nobody grows a company and sells a company for no reason, but did you do a little something with a little bit of the, dollars a day? Hopefully upgraded vehicles so you can race a little faster, something. got a faster go-kart, baby.
By the way, go-karts are a ton of fun. You just go to the local go-kart track if you want to have some fun.
Yes, that's true.
Did we do anything? I grew up